Welcome back to part 2 of our Phasmophobia discussion. Again, today I'm going to be joined by Risky Ginger. We're going to be talking more about Phasmophobia, some things that we'd like to see added to the game, some updates, things along those lines. If you haven't already, consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you enjoy today's content, don't forget to hit like. It does help out the channel a lot. But with that out of the way, let's jump in.
Another thing that I would really love to see is a dedicated monitor in the van for us to be able to use a handheld video camera and record interactions. Right now, we take still photos of interactions, like if it interacts with a door or a radio or a cell phone, we take a still picture and it gets labeled as interaction. Well, what if we could record those things and it was fed from our camera straight to a monitor in the van? And that monitor is what's allowing us to collect these different recordings so that our interactions are actually like real-time video recorded interactions.
Funny that you say that, because that actually kind of just made me think of something else that I was thinking about too, is the kind of the setup of the game. So currently it's just like, we've got an investigation, go check this out. But you never really see like the results of your investigation. And I mean, they've got some other games where you have to like exorcise the demons, or exorcise the ghost, or whatever. And that's cool. Like that's what you want to do. That's your thing. And I don't think Phasmophobia is ever going to get to that point. I mean, it might not, but I would like to see maybe some additions where you actually have to gather more information about the ghost other than just the ghost type. I mean, like currently they have like bonus objectives where it's like, get away from the ghost during a hunt, or get your sanity below 20%, or go smudge the ghost charm, which is cool for like extra cash. But like, maybe we actually have to go figure out the ghost's name. Maybe we actually, within the journal, it gives us a breakdown. And I at one point, I don't know if he's added it in yet. Has he added the room names in yet?
So if you ask the Ouija board, because the Ouija board has a whole new line of questions that you can ask now that it's become one of those cursed possessions. If you ask the Ouija board like where a ghost is, it will tell you a room name. Even when you're in like the high school, it'll tell you a classroom name or a classroom number, but those aren't actually found on the map.
I know at one point, because we had covered it on one of the updates, they were saying that they were going to be adding the names in for each room into the map, so you could be like, oh, it's the downstairs parlor or whatever. Maybe that could be a clue, kind of like segueing into what we were talking about. That could be information that we have to provide, like what is the ghost's favorite room, which I mean, I don't know how they would do that unless we, with like professional and in the harder difficulty, because it can change rooms. But I feel like that could be something that they could implement, and tweak a couple things, obviously. I don't know, is there anything that you would like to see as far as kind of along those lines added to the game?
I would. As I was just saying, with the Ouija board having this whole new line of questioning, we don't ever really find out much about our ghosts. We know their names, and depending on the level of difficulty you're playing, you either don't know if it's what we like to call an alone ghost, or if it responds to everyone. However, the Ouija board, you can now ask the ghost how it died. I would love to make that an objective. Not only do you learn more about your ghost itself, but it encourages you to use a cursed possession. It is way easy to go into these matches, take your picture of your cursed possession, and forget about it, because most of them, if not all of them, lead to an immediate hunt, and you're like, I don't want to die. And I don't blame you. But it's a really good way to encourage the use.
And that's kind of funny too, like thinking about it. I never really thought about it until you're actually, saying this, but I don't really ever use the cursed possessions, because you're right, it does 9 times out of 10 it's going to be just a hunt. But that is a good point, where it kind of gives you more of a push to use those cursed objectives. It's kind of like before, we always wanted to keep our sanity as high as possible, but now they have the objective where it's like, oh, get your team sanity below 20%. So it's like, all right, cool, we'll go do that.
Instead of just sitting in a house in the dark, go push a couple pins on that voodoo doll, watch it drop your sanity, pull a couple tarot cards. Now the tarot cards can really get you, because those pull at random, and if you get that death card, you're done, instant.
Right.
Like it's just instantly on you, and that's a death. So the tarot cards, they're a little bit trickier. The music box, as it plays, it's constantly lowering your sanity until you hear a broken sound, and then the ghost hunts. Those objects I think they are fantastic additions to the game. They add an element of like, can I use this and get away with it without dying? However, it is also just as easy to run in, take a picture of them for the money, and forget they exist.
That is true. That's 9 times out of 10, unless I am getting bored of the game, that's pretty much what's going to happen. Just
Exactly.
snap a photo, maybe throw it outside, and that's about it. Now, going back to interactions real quick, because it just kind of crossed my mind. And I found a list, supposable, now again, this is from April of last year, but I did find a list of supposable triggers for the ghost, and some of these I have tested, and they don't really work too well, but I think I'm going to make a video on it in the future. I'm going to actually go through and do some investigating to see if these actually work. But I feel like the ghosts need more vocal interaction.
Things that we can say, not necessarily to the spirit box, but just like so that the ghosts can hear us, that will trigger it in some capacity.
Yeah, that will trigger it to do something. Because right now, if you guys have been playing the game as long as we have, the ghost doesn't really feel like a ghost until it's hunting. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I would say that hunt is when you're like, oh man, like that's when that adrenaline gets going and you're pumping just a little bit, because, you know, there's some of these ghosts that they're on your heels and you're probably in trouble. You know, like the Raiju. Oh my gosh, that is probably my most feared ghost. But when we're just doing investigative stuff, it'll whisper in my ear, and sure, it'll make me jump because I wasn't expecting it, but I'm just like, you hush, you go on. I'm trying to figure stuff out. Like, it almost feels like I'm dealing with
something that's scripted. It's like peeling back the Matrix. It's like I can see you're knocking stuff over and you're getting kind of mad that I'm in here. You're probably about to hiss at me. Yeah, you're probably about to hiss at me, but that's the thing too, that we were kind of talking about the other day. Personally, I don't know how the game's coded. I'm not a coder, but if I had to imagine, the actual model of the ghost is separate from the interaction. Like I'm almost 100% sure that the model of the ghost that's walking around invisible, quote unquote invisible, is not the actual thing that's causing the interaction. The interactions are just based off of like a percentage, like an algorithm of like when it's going to happen or if it's going to happen.
Now that makes me wonder just a little bit, because I have seen some instances where the model may be a little more integrated now than what it used to be. Just because if you have a ghost that hunts and it's a crawler, sometimes when it'll run through dots, if you have dots as an objective, sometimes it's upright, but sometimes it crawls. So it goes in between the two, and it can hunt you and be a crawler one time, and then the next hunt it can be upright. They're not consistently in the same position. So it makes me wonder if they're a little more integrated, but I tend to be kind of on the same line with you. I don't think they're 100%
right
integrated.
But what I mean by that though is like when a ghost closes a door, I don't think the actual like model of the ghost is walking over the door and closing it.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so either. Because we can see like their little silhouette forms sometimes, or we can see their shadow form, or we can see their full form when they're like appearing for us. But say you've got, you know, Pajama Girl Ghost. She's fairly short. She's kind of like a preteenish age, but she's leaving handprints, you know, above center on a door. That's not very realistic. So like those interactions being integrated with the actual ghost model that's presented, I think you're right there. I'm not entirely sure they're integrated with each other.
Yeah, because I mean, how many times have you seen the ghost walk through the dots and close the door at the same time?
Yes.
Or the ghost appears in front of you down the hall, yet it just set off the car alarm in the other room.
Exactly.
So that's kind of what I'm talking about. And as far as the interaction goes, I get why they have it programmed this way. Just, you know, from playing video games for a long time and having kind of like a general, like I do watch a lot of like video game programming and like behind the scenes stuff. So I get how, you know, a lot of video game creators and designers get away with different techniques, like using a mirror, for example. Like, you know, back on like the PS1 and PS2 days, if they had a mirror in a room, 9 times out of 10, you were actually just looking at another room with another model actually following you, essentially mimicking you.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it wasn't an actual mirror that you were looking at. It was another room that was copied, reversed, and then a model that mimics your character. So I have some general understanding of how they pull tricks and stuff in video games. And I would like to see that model become more attached to what it's actually doing. So if it does slam a door, it's not going to hunt down the hallway 2 seconds later.
Oh, like what? So, again, there's a Twitch stream playing Phasmophobia last night. I was actually the person that was in the van making sure that, our little ghost's orb stayed in its room because the orbs follow your ghost, and the ghost's orbs are in the room. However, the ghost spawns on the opposite side of the house next to a closet and hunts. That doesn't make any sense. It should not have happened.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all.
However, it did happen, and that's kind of where I see that break, like what you're talking about.
Yeah, again, it's kind of like, peeking through the matrix. You start to see, after playing a video game for so long, the flaws. And I don't want to bash Phasmophobia. I think Phasmophobia is a genius idea of a video game. In fact, when somebody told me what it was, I was almost immediately hooked on the idea of like, oh, you're essentially a ghost hunter, so you're going into houses gathering information. And and again, this game does hold my interest today, but it definitely held my interest more when it first released, when I was learning everything. And it's like this with all video games. So I would like to see more things to do within each match other than just a quick bonus objective and, some objectives and gather the ghost's quote unquote identity, like ghost type.
And I can see, looking at some of the stuff they have planned, they've got new content drop, which includes new types of evidence, new ghosts, things of that nature. But I have to say, as a huge fan of Phasmophobia, I probably watch way more Phasmophobia than a person should. I would actually, instead of them dropping a new ghost type, I would actually like to see them improve upon the current types that they have. I would rather see that focus put more into what exists than just trying to pump out. The new evidence would be awesome, and the new methods to gather evidence, that's cool, because we're familiar with everything at this point. But instead of adding new ghosts, we've got 21 in the game now. Instead of adding new ghosts, let's just improve on what we already have to make them more discernible by their behavior. That is something I would really like to see.
Yes. I agree. Now, something also that they're going to be adding in that we talked about on the last video, we just kind of hinted at it, because unfortunately, the devs, I don't know what's going on with the devs right now, but like before they were giving us all kinds of information as to what they were working on, but now they're just kind of giving us like a general, new ghost type. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, cool.
They started doing this kind of secretive thing. It started back at the Halloween update that they did last year. They did it at the Halloween update. They did it at the Christmas update because they've been very festive and it's been a lot of fun. Hearing Santa Claus with footsteps that sound like jingle bells chase you is hilarious and slightly terrifying all at the same time. But they were releasing, it'd be a couple days, as much to a week before the update would actually drop. They would, in this form that they would release, it would have the date that the update was coming, and then they would have things listed out, kind of like how you would see in a patchwork update, but some of it would be redacted to leave things as a surprise, so that when you download the update and you go into it, you're like, I don't know everything to expect, so it kind of heightens that anticipation, which I think is really cool. However,
it is, but it's terrible for me as a content creator.
Right? in that leeway time between, we got our cursed possessions, that leeway time, because we haven't had another update except for some patchwork, some bug fixes, things like that. We haven't really heard anything. We got around New Year's, they were like, this is the 2022 major update roadmap. This is what you can expect throughout the year, but we haven't really heard anything else. And, we're just starting into the year, obviously, at the point that this video is being recorded, we're only into the second month of the year. So, maybe I'm just looking for a little too much, but I would like to hear something. I want to know, where are we at?
Yes, I would like some more information. But one thing that they did hint at was new kill animations.
Yes.
And I'm curious, because originally I thought, okay, cool, we're going to have little, maybe some different variations, because currently right now when you die, as the player, you have the hands that come over and grab the screen. Mm-hmm. Which is awesome. I actually love that kill animation. It's very unique in its own right. So originally my thought was, okay, cool, they're gonna have variations of that. But earlier today, I had an epiphany and I'm like, well, what if it's not just that? What if maybe it's the external, what your friends are seeing?
So from what I understand, that was actually their intention, is right now as a kill animation, if you're playing with others, those people see your character reach up for their neck and they hear a strangling sound. sound,
Yeah,
which sounds really bad to say on the internet.
Through the wall.
But yeah, and you clip through a wall and, fun stuff. The kill animations, from what I've heard others talk about and from what I understand, they're actually looking to make it so that it's not a strangulation every time. Maybe the neck gets snapped or, something different each time. And so it's what the viewer sees, it's what the teammates see. That animation of the hands coming around you to get you as the player, that is supposed to actually stay the same. But it's the death,
the external
animations themselves. Yeah, that external factor is what is supposed to change.
Yeah, and honestly, that's something I'm really excited for. Hopefully, because right now, I'm not gonna lie, when I first started playing the game by myself, the thought of dying was very scary. But now, when I play with friends, I find it to be hilarious because of what happens to them when they die. Because they always end up dropping in a really awkward angle, or again clipping through the wall.
I definitely, one of my favorite ones that I saw was somebody did not make it. They got hugged by a ghost in a garage, and their character model, the head was sticking out the garage door, so you could see the head outside and the body inside. It was hilarious.
In fact, I'm pretty sure that happened to me in Sobe one time.
I'm pretty sure it did.
Yeah.
So I like what they do when the bodies drop, because you never know how it's gonna land.
Yeah, so it's hilarious, but again, it does, while it creates amazing content, it again reduces that horror.
Somebody's died because you hear that sound, you hear them being strangled, and you're like, oh, somebody didn't make it. So it'll be interesting to see with the other animations. We'll also get other auditory stimuli to let us know if somebody didn't make it. I'm curious to see how they move forward with that as well. Because if they're going to go with something like a neck snap instead of a strangulation, are we going to hear that crack? That is something that would put the chills through me and be like, no, I'm out, guys. I'm done. I don't want that to happen to me. So it's something that would give those goosebumps and make your hair kind of stand on end. So I'm curious to see how they proceed with that as well.
And ultimately, I think the goal for a lot of people that have played Phasmophobia for a long time, I think a lot of us want more of a horror element to the game, because again, and I keep saying this, I keep referring back to when I first started playing, but when I first started playing, that's when I got the most enjoyment out of the game. Not that I'm bored with the game, but I remember when there was times where I was scared to come out of the van. I walked in the house, I got my evidence, I need to go back in for something more, but I'm having to talk myself into going back in. Alright guys, so thanks for sticking around for part 2 of our Phasmophobia discussion. If you guys haven't already, consider hitting a subscribe so that way you guys can come back and check out more of our future content. Also, again, we've got more content over on Twitch that you guys can watch, and over on Hover as well. We've got plenty of our awesome clips over there for you guys to check out. But until next time, this is Obi signing out.